This is the Toyota GR Yaris. I know this car has been reviewed to death, but 5 years on now, this was released in 2020, is now the best time to buy one. Let's find out. So this car was released in 2020, 5 years ago this year, and this car was hyped by the media and enthusiasts. Everyone loved it. Everyone went absolutely nuts for it. So I actually test drove one of these cars in 2022, and I was very keen about buying one. I did really like it, but there were some things I wasn't too fond of, which I'll go into later. But I'm not going to pretend I don't love this car. I do have a bit of bias. I absolutely love it. But we'll find out more about it, what I do and don't like, when we're driving it. Stats for this car, I'm sure you've heard a million times, but I will just go over them quickly. So we've got the 1.6 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine up front, producing 261 brake horsepower and 266 pound-feet of torque, so all four wheels. Let's walk around and talk about the exterior of this car. I think this car looks very good. I love the wide arches. Bit of a throwback to the old Delta Integrale, the homologation specials back in the day. So this car has a circuit pack, which is signified with the red brake calipers, which has Brembo brakes front and rear. Also has Torsen LSDs front and rear, as well as a few other suspension changes. The owner has had them powder coated in gold because he said he curbed them, but I think the gold looks quite good against the white personally. This nice pearl white paint. Let's keep going around, keep looking at the car. So up here we have a carbon fibre roof. A bit controversially, it is wrapped in carbon fibre look, but it is actually carbon fibre underneath there. It's sort of a forged carbon fibre underneath, which I think looks good, but it isn't finished. I don't know why they put this wrap on. It seems a bit weird, but it is a carbon fibre roof, even though it is wrapped. These rear arches are the widest point on the car. I think they really set this car apart from anything else on the road. Nice boxy, wide stance. I mean, you see how far that comes out from the original body line. It's insane. I love it. One way you can tell this is a GR Yaris, if the big arches and everything else wasn't a big sign for you, it's a two-door. This is the only Yaris with two doors. The other ones have sort of hidden handles back here. This whole back half of the car is bespoke to this particular vehicle. Up front we have this big menacing bumper. It's got these massive air ducts for the brakes. It's got a big front mount intercooler, which you can see, which is very rally car. As I said, the back half of this car is completely bespoke. So we've got this sloping roof line with this big spoiler here. We've got dual tips and a diffuser. This sort of light bar, if you like, here, and in this back quarter shot you can see how wide these arches are. The owner has some mud flaps put on here which aren't factory, but I think they suit the car, so you know, fine by me. But you can really see how wide set this car is from the back three quarters, and there's no way you could mistake this for a normal Yaris. Not from back here anyway, maybe from the front if you're partially blind. Can't put that in. And in case you couldn't tell, it's a GR Yaris, GR4, four-wheel drive, GR, many GRs. Driving the GR Yaris. The first thing I'm going to mention is the same thing that irritated me when I drove one of these 2-3 years ago. The visibility at the front of this car is awful, especially for someone like myself. I'm about 6 foot. The rear view mirror is too low down the windscreen, and this screen, this multimedia screen, is too high. And I know people talk about it, and the seat is too high, but the visibility looking out of this car is so bad. It feels like I'm looking through a letterbox trying to look out the windscreen. I can't see these cars here. I have to go like this. I have to duck down. It is really bizarre. These seats, although they look very nice, they've got nice GR branding, they've got nice Alcantara on them. It's probably the highlight of the interior aesthetically. They sit way too high. My head is about 2 inches away from the roof, and I'm not a super tall guy. And I also just feel like in a sporty car, you need to be sat lower down. Some people do retrospectively lower the seats with different mounts or even get bucket seats, and I think it'll make a big difference to the driving experience, just feel a lot more sporty and less like your grandma's hatchback. It's worth noting both of those concerns I just outlined, so this little letterbox gap here and this seat being way too high, have both been addressed on the facelift. So Toyota are aware of the complaints and have fixed them in the latest one. So if it's something that's going to prevent you from buying the car, maybe get the facelift one. That moves us on to the interior in general, and to be honest, it is pretty diabolical in here. It is basically a bottom spec Yaris, very plasticky, very cheap feeling, not exactly the best materials used in here. Aside from this nice steering wheel and the seats, it feels very, very Yaris, and that is not a compliment. But you don't buy a GR Yaris for the interior. You buy a GR Yaris for being on a road like this, on a day like this, and to do this. That gearbox is so direct, so notchy, but in a good way. The driving feel is so immersive and rewarding. I know people say it's like a rally car on the road, but it really is. You can feel the way the car rotates around a corner, the power, so good. And the steering, going around this roundabout now, super direct, power delivery, pulls you out of that corner. Wow. So being this all-wheel drive, you've got those rear wheels rotating you around and those front wheels pulling you out of the corners. Feels so good, so fun. I love it. So with the circuit pack, we've got these nice Brembo brakes, and I will say they feel splendid. That brake pedal has really nice feel to it. And this car is a circuit pack, thank the Lord, because again, I think the convenience pack is a waste of time. But one thing, there's a map button on this sort of navigation screen, but if you press it, nothing comes up, because that is only available on the convenience pack, which is very bizarre. To have a physical button you can press that says map and it just doesn't work from this car from factory. Bizarre. Considering it's a new car, it's a very visceral experience in here. It's very loud, you can hear everything. I think it's quite good and it suits the character of the car, but it's definitely worth noting if you're sort of sensitive to that or don't like loud interiors, don't get a GR Yaris. Fuel efficiency on this car is actually quite good. Being that it's a 1.6 3-cylinder, I'm averaging 29.2 right now, MPGs, and I've not been driving it very lightly, so that is quite good. It does have auto stop though, which I absolutely hate. You can turn it off by pressing the button down here, because who likes auto stop? Not me. And it's also got lane departure assist, but that's also annoying, so we can turn that off as well with the button on the steering wheel. It also has rev matching with this IMT button down here, so next to the traction control, so where you turn traction control off, you can also press IMT and it automatically rev matches quite well actually. So when you dip the clutch in and shift the gear, it automatically rev matches. I personally prefer to heel and toe, I find it quite rewarding, but it can do it, so if you're not that capable of doing heel and toe, do that and it'll do it for you. And very well, very smooth. I've never actually experienced that on any car before, so that's quite a new experience for me. And it is pretty good. Well, that's good, but I prefer doing it myself, so that's just because I'm stubborn. So down here in front of the gear stick, we have the drive select mode, so you can twist it left for sport mode, right for track mode, or push through the middle for normal. In track mode, power is equally distributed to the front and the rear. In sport mode, it has 70% power to the rear and 30% power to the front. And in normal mode, so when you push down the middle, it's just generally what you'll drive on, is 60% rear bias, 40% front bias. So we will just drive the foreseeable in, we'll go sport, so 70% to the rear, and I'll see how different that feels. So we've got most of the power going through the rear LSD. As I say, circuit packs, we've got the LSDs, which I think are super beneficial. This car feels so planted on these roads. Really easy to heel and toe on the way down. Super direct steering. This particular car is painted in pearl white, one of the most common colours for the Yaris. I think one of the best colours on the Yaris. I'm a big fan of the red, but yeah, to me the pearl white looks the best. There's also a black colour you can get and a different white, which is the base white, but most people do spec in this pearl white. I think it was about £500 extra to go for the pearl white when buying these cars new. I will double check that, but I think it was around £500. It is the most common colour, and I think the best colour for these cars. And this particular car with the gold wheels, I think it sets off really well with the white, and definitely has a bit of a rally car vibe to it. Flips it into track mode by twisting this dial to the right. Let's see how different that feels now. So as I say, 50-50 power distribution. Pull out this corner now. So nimble, so direct. The difference when you feel that power going 50-50, the way it can grip up is so impressive. I've heard people say that these are the fastest cars on the road because they can drive fast in any condition, and I can see why. It's not perfect conditions today, it's pretty cold, a bit damp under these trees, and it is gripping up so good. This particular Yaris is one of the highest mileage GR Yaris in the country. It has about 65,000 miles on it. The owner's taken it to the Nürburgring on many road trips, enjoyed this car, what it's all about. And if you want a car with this sort of mileage, they are around £25,000. Now, I looked on Auto Trader today. The only two GR Yarises for sale under £25,000 are both Cat S and both from Birmingham. Make of that what you will, but generally speaking, these cars probably start at around £25,000 for higher mileage ones. That is quite expensive, albeit it's a lot of car for the money, not in terms of interior, in terms of driving experience. But you do have to consider, aside from the buy price of this car, which, as I say, is quite expensive, starting at about £25,000 for the higher mileage ones, all the way up to like £33,000, £34,000. So an expensive car, generally speaking, in terms of running costs, is quite cheap. Being a small engine, little hatchback, the tax is relatively cheap. Insurance isn't too bad, although being a performance car, the service costs are quite high, only due to the fact you have to service this car very regularly. The service intervals are every 6,000 miles or 6 months, whichever comes first, for a regular sort of fluid change, and then a bigger service every 12,000 miles or every year. So you do have to service this car quite a lot, but it's Toyota, so it will be reliable if you stick to the maintenance schedule, which you should definitely do because it's basically a rally car for the road. Being a Japanese performance car, there is a huge amount of aftermarket support. One of the most common mods is the exhaust, which luckily this owner has done, because from factory these cars sound super uninspiring. I've driven one that's standard and they do not sound good. It takes away from the driving experience a little bit. I mean, especially if you're driving one of these cars, it looks so aggressive and then sounds like a hairdryer, it's not good. Another common modification is, as I already mentioned, lowering the seat, which is something I would do. The only two mods I would do if I did own this car is lower the seat and do an exhaust, maybe an induction, just to free up that turbo a little bit. I don't feel like the car needs that much more power. I think for the weight of this car, weighing in about 1,200 kilos, with the all-wheel drive system on the road, I think it's got enough power. I wouldn't personally, maybe I'd go up to 300 horsepower max. I wouldn't put a lot more horsepower through it, but it is available. I've seen some people online, some builds where people push this car up to 600 horsepower and beyond, which is insane. I don't know why anyone wants 600 horsepower of this car, but it's definitely possible. So if that's something you wanted to do, you can. Is 2025 the year to buy one of these cars, the GR Yaris? The new one has been announced and started to sort of trickle into customers' hands. That has affected the value of the original ones, as it would, because the facelift addressed some of the issues which this car has, also has more power. For me personally, I think it's a very expensive car for what it is. Sitting behind the wheel now, it is super fun, super fast. If I had loads of money, I probably would. But for me, there's other cars I want to experience for this sort of money before the GR Yaris. I want to own before. Because this car's new, my thought process is these cars are going to be around for years. They're quite friendly to the environment. They're obviously new, so they're not going to rust. There's other cars I want to experience that are only going to get older. They're going to get rarer, they're going to get rustier. They're just going to be harder to find, harder to buy. So for me personally, there's other cars I want to experience while this one's still new. So maybe in another 5 years, when this car's 10 years old, and they're sitting around £20,000, maybe slightly less, then I'd probably consider it a bit more. I really love these cars, I really do. Even with these little weird interior foibles, I do really love it. But for the money, there's just other cars I want to experience before this, and I'd want to own before this. However, if you want a reliable road-going rally car, and the cheap-ish interior doesn't put you off, go for one now. Go get one, because they are so good. It's good. That power delivery is so smooth, so nice. I always say smooth and nice. Off. Pound-feet of torque. I made those stats up. Forged wheels with the big red Brembo brakes. Oh, nearly falling over. Only available, oh, stop beeping at me. Only available in two-door, not still beeping at me. Turn power off. No, it's not. Stop your shit. And I think this car looks really good, which I haven't said about 6 times. Always awkward when I'm staring at